Okay, the next thing we need to do is get this snake to actually eat the fruit. You know, because otherwise we don't have a game. So, first things first, detect when the fruit is eaten. Now that's reasonably easy to do. We've written most of the code already. So here, this is in move. In move. Once we move the snakehead, this is the perfect place to check whether we have eaten. Should this be its own function? Maybe. So let's rather then, where is it? Where do we call move? Find move. Here we go. Updates if t is 0 move, then check eat. So let's make a function called check eat. We'll put it near where move is. So let's go to move, find the bottom of this function there, and then function check eat. And then what we need to do in here is check if fruit is eaten, mark it as eaten, update score, which we'll probably write its own little function for, remove eaten fruit. Okay, check if fruit was eaten. Now the nice thing is we've essentially made this already, because we can just go if occupies. The reason we told occupies to take an object to check is because now instead of sending the snake to check the snake, we can send the fruit to check the fruit. And we want to check snakehead.x position and snakehead.y position. Then end. Let's just debug trace something. Eat the fruit to make sure that it's working. Okay, run it. That's convenient. So we need to debug for it to print, and there it should eat the fruit. So in our console we see snakehead moves to 1 and 16, eat the fruit. Cool. Now for the time being, we only have one fruit at a time. But we want to code it so that it can handle more than one fruit, because then later on we can, pop a bunch on screen at the same time if we want. We can have ones with special multipliers that are worth more than others, so that a player has to choose between going after the one that's nearby or going after the one that's worth more points. But then we'll probably want special fruit to disappear after a while. Either way, to do that, we're going to need to know what fruit is occupying that space. So we can do that like such. Let's go to, firstly, let's mark this position so that we can get back to it. That's a little bookmark. Control F1, or just clicking in the gutter here adds a marker. And then normally when you press F1 it just goes to the code editor, but if you have bookmarks in place, like say there's one up there and one over there, then pressing F1 pops between the bookmarks, which is super useful. We don't need this one. Okay. In occupies, instead of returning true when we collide, we return the actual object. And then if we don't find anything, we return null. Now we are using this function somewhere, and we do need to change how it gets handled there. So if I search, so find occupies, that's the one we're going to fix now. This is the one we need to look at. So this goes if not occupied, which is looking for a true or false. Instead, we need to check if occupies returns null. So that should fix that. But now if I pop back to where we were busy coding, this has to do the same. So let's quickly do a local variable called fruit to eat is going to be this. So we store the value that comes back from this function into its own variable, and then we check it on its own. If fruit to eat is not equal to null, then we do this. So let's just to prove that we actually have the object, let's print fruit to eat dot x position, just so that we can see that we actually have those values to work with. Let's do it again. Turn around, and then there. So in our console, we have eat the fruit and the number 3, which matches the position of the snake head on X, so we know that it's working. And we have the object. Now, mark it as eaten. So what I want to do is, instead of, let me just strip this out and put it in the right spot, and also fix my indentation. Instead of simply removing the fruit, because if I just delete the fruit and add to the score, then the fruit's going to disappear before the snake head moves over it. So we need to mark the fruit as eaten, but still draw it for a while until we cover it with the snake. So mark it as eaten, which means I'm going to go fruit to eat dot eaten is equal to true. But then we need to make sure that all fruit have an eaten value that would normally be false. So where we create our fruit, which is in new fruit, we give our potential fruit. This is our fruit factory, essentially. So we're just going to say that all of them have an eaten is equal to false value. So all fruit will have an X position, a Y position, and an eaten value. And we can mark that eaten as true when it gets eaten, which means we need some kind of visual indicator. We need some kind of visual indicator when we draw the fruit that it has been eaten. So for each of the fruit, if underscore f is a dot eaten, then we do something, else we draw it as normal. For now, let's just, if I change the transparency color to -1, it means everything is opaque, and because the background of our fruit is black, it means that the background of our fruit would go black when it gets eaten. Otherwise, it'll just print as normal. So what did I do? End expected, line 318. Go to 318. End of the file, which means I did something wrong somewhere. Oh, that's the end for the loop. This is the end. There we go. I fixed it. I fixed it, everybody. I found my mistake. Eaten. Fruit Loops. Fruit Loop. There we go. Okay, so now, if this did what it's supposed to, then as soon as I move over that fruit, its background should turn black. Cool, the fruit knows that it's been eaten. And what do I do with this information? So we need a score. I don't think we're using X and Y. Let's leave it there for now. Score is equal to a number, at this point 0. Then we need to print the score on screen. So I'm going to make in TIC, there's draw. Then I'm going to make a new function called draw UI. Let's put this where draw is. End of draw is there. So below that we make a function called draw UI. Now, where do we draw the UI? On the right hand side here. So 2 new globals, or at least 1 new global. UI center X is going to be, where do we place the UI? Let's just left align it for now, just because that's simpler, because that's just a straight up print. Where do we want it? We wanted the same distance as the entire grid. So border plus cell size times grid size. And then let's add border to it again so that the spacing on the left and the right is the same. And then in draw score, or draw UI, we're going to put a thing that says draw score and print at the text for, let's just go score, and then the number, and it's at X position. What did I call it? UI center X. Let's just make it UI. Yeah, UI center X. It's fine. At UI center X, Y position would be border for now, and the color would be 12. Okay, let's see what that spits out. Okay, there we go. It's the same distance from there as it is from there. And then it says score 0. And then I don't increment the score yet. So when we eat, check eat. If we ate the fruit, we also need to go score is equal to score plus 1. Okay, let's see what that does. Boop. Now, we can still eat this fruit over and over, because even though it's marked as eaten, we haven't checked whether it's eaten. Now, there's two ways of dealing with this. I only wanted the fruit to be there until it's covered by the snake. Then we can delete it. Which means we can never go into that same space again, because if we move into the same space as the snake, we lose. So instead, oh, here we go, update score. This line needs to be here. Then remove eaten fruit. This is going to be a separate thing, but I'm going to go for IV in, I get IF, because fruit in pairs fruit do end if fruit dot eaten and occupies, the snake no longer occupies underscore f dot x position and underscore f dot y position, then we can remove it. Problem is we're looping, we can't modify a list we're looping through. Just finish my line of code, because if I now remove this item, it's going to screw up our loop. Okay, the problem with doing it this way is that if I now remove that object, index is going to be, say, for instance, 1, right? Then I remove the object at 1. So 1, say this is our array, right? So now I remove this. This is where our loop is at the moment. So I remove this item, which then moves this one to 1, and this one to 1, and this one to 2. Then my array thing moves to 2, which is going to then move to this one, and essentially skip a value. So I need to do this backwards. And pairs doesn't let me do it backwards. So, a little of a more complicated version. We're going to go for I is equal to the length of fruit down to 1 at -1. Oh, do. Then local underscore f is going to be fruit at that index. Then we do this. Which we can then go table.remove from our fruit list at index I. And then carry on. Okay. And this is remove eaten fruit. Okay, so we're looping through the list from the last one to the first one. We find the fruit we're looking at. If it is eaten and it's no longer underneath the snake, then we remove it. So it'll check fruit, I don't know, 11 first, then 10, then 9. which means I can remove 9 safely. If there is a 10, it'll move down to the position of 9, but then the next one we check is 8. So we won't miss any values. Okay, which means if I do this, I broke it. There's a then missing somewhere. But where? Snake 27D, expected near the then. Oh, close bracket, expected near then. If there. Missed the close bracket. Okay, so theoretically I should now be able to eat this fruit. Oh, it disappeared. But why? Why did it disappear prematurely? Ooh, is equal to null. Try it again. So the fruit should stay there when I move over it. Okay, it goes eaten. It's still there. It's still there. It's still there. You can see the black edges around it, so the fruit is technically still there. But then when our last segment moves off of it, now it gets deleted safely. Okay. And our score is incrementing, I think. Is our score incrementing? Ugh, wrong button. Okay, our score is going up. And now the last thing we need to do when we eat the fruit is we need to place a new fruit. Check eat. Here, score increments and then new fruit. So here we can just go new fruit. Run. Hey, look at that. We essentially have a game. The next thing we need to do is we need to make the snake longer when we eat this fruit. And maybe change the look of the fruit when it gets eaten. Actually, we need to do some UI, like some looking nice stuff in general. Because we can't just be eating squares the whole time. This is already kind of fun though.